Yo! Yayo, yayo, dreaming. Don't give it up, Lupe. Dreaming. Don't give it up, Solo. Dreaming. Don't give it up, Nave. Dreaming. Don't give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is the Phil that plays, and today we are playing some One Piece. Well, talking about One Piece. I really wanted to make this video because I've been thinking about it for a while, but after seeing the Heart Pirates TCG video the other day talking about a ban or restriction list, shout out to him, great content creator, really like his stuff. So I want to give my 2 cents because I love giving my own opinions on things, as you've noticed in the past. So today I want to talk about some cards that I think need to be banned, cards that need to be restricted, possibly a new mechanic in the game that they should add from another Bandai game, and then, did I say possible cards that need to be hit in the future? I think so, but let's talk about it here. So let's start with what cards I think need to be banned. It's time they need to go, or at least banned for a minimal amount of time to see if the meta changes. And of course, we know what that card was. The Whitebeard leader, aka Edward Newgate. I know I'm not the only person that is tired of seeing this leader win. I'm tired of seeing this leader constantly take up most of the spots in the top 16 or top 32. I'm tired of seeing it win all the time, and I think it just, for now, it needs to go. It was the best leader in set 2, it was the best leader in set 3, and it's still the best leader in set 4. There is no weakness to it. The only way you beat Whitebeard is if you draw amazingly well, or the Whitebeard player draws like absolute crap. But the Whitebeard deck has so many great cards that are all searchable. We've tried to nerf it in the past by hitting the 9-drop Whitebeard, Radical Beam, and Blocker Marco, which I agree are all solid hits that absolutely were deserving. But it still didn't get rid of the deck. And I think at that point, instead of trying to ban more individual cards, which will overall weaken the strength of red, I think it's just better to ban the leader straight outright. It's time. You know, the leader, it needs to go. I mean, look at it. Look at him being all, smirking and whatnot. I think it's just time. At least, ban him for a while, maybe a set or two, to see how much the meta changes with him being gone. But that, of course, is my opinion. Next up, I have what cards I think need to be limited to 1. And of course, you see 2 cards that were in the Heart Pirate TCG video, but you're also going to see another one, Makino. So here's my thing. We'll get to Lin and Trafalgar Law, but Makino, I think, is a card that is just ridiculously good in low-to-the-ground red decks like the red Weenie Zoro deck, even good decks into Law. The fact that it is, one, a 2k counter, so you're automatically going to have 4 in deck. It is searchable with Curly Dedan, and the fact that you can play this card for 1, tap it down immediately, and give another 1-cost card 3k power. So a lot of 1-cost characters are anywhere from 2 to 3k power. You play 1, boom, now it's a 5k or a 6k body. Throw into Zoro, that extra 1k, now it's a 6 or 7k attack. Or, this happened to me, and I know people are going to say, oh, you're just coping, oh, you're mad that you lost to this card. A buddy of mine played 3 of these in a row, on the same turn, tapped all 3, and swung in a 12k body. For 3 Dawn, he had a 12k attacker, which is just absolutely insane. I think this card needs to be limited to 1 copy per deck, or, we'll go in another slide here, I'll be able to explain maybe why it needs to have a new keyword skill on it. But I think the card is just, it gives you way too much value for the little cost as it does. I think it absolutely should have an errata to cost an extra resource in order to tap it, or it should just be limited to 1. That's my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think about Makino. Of course, we have Charlotte Linlin. The card is just nuts. You play it, you create a 2-card deficit. 1 card, 1 more life for you, 1 less life for your opponent. You play another one, and then another one, back to back. It's too good. It's the best 10-drop in the game, hands down. And that's essentially how yellow players win. I will die on that hill. Yellow players cannot win unless they drop multiple Charlotte Linlins back to back. One is bad enough, but when you drop two and then possibly three, you play the one. Next turn you have a 12k body, which unless your opponent has to block, or else they have to drop so many cards out of their hand, they're not going to be able to get out of it. You play a second one, so now you're not only making your opponent lose additional life, you're getting that additional life. It just creates a 2-card deficit every time you play it. It's ridiculous. Even if opponents red rocket, guess what? The damage has already been done. It's just ridiculous. Like, the card is too good. I think it needs to be limited to one per deck. That way, when you play it, it's done. The fact that it's also searchable with many different searchers in Katakuri or Big Mom, it's too good. I think it really needs to be limited to one, because then it comes down to luck if you see it instead of just, easily. You easily find it with your searchers. It's just, I think everyone can agree, except Katakuri players, that this card needs to be limited to one. And of course, we have Trafalgar Law, the 5-drop that basically makes the deck run. Law is a very good deck. The fact that Law is still meta relevant in set 4, even though it hasn't got any support since set 2, and got very minimal set 2 support. I think limiting this card down to 1 will take a lot of steam out of Law's engine, but I don't know. I think Law is still a really good deck even without this card, but this card definitely makes the deck just pop off. So, in my opinion, yes, this card should be limited to 1. It is essentially Law's boss monster of the deck, which kind of goes into the another slide I have later down the line. But the next slide here, because I don't want people saying, oh, he's not talking about blue, let me talk about blue real quick. So, people like to complain about this card, Gum Gun Red Rock. It is the best card that came out of set 4, in my opinion. A 6-cost card that bottom decks any boss on the field. See, my personal opinion, with how the meta is right now, with boss monsters being the big thing that can decide games, this card needs to exist. I think it is on the same level as 10-drop Charlotte Linlin being able to decide games. But I think Charlotte Linlin is still a little bit higher. I think Red Rock needs to exist in this game because of the amount of other ridiculous big boss monsters like, 10-drop Linlin, 10-drop Green Dofi, 9-cost Whitebeard, 10-cost Purple Croc, not Croc, Purple Kaido, Blue Kaido that we got. I think that as long as boss monsters like this tend to exist, Blue needs some way of getting rid of them, because Blue's boss monsters, in comparison, I do not think are as good as some of the other color boss monsters. For a longest time, Blue only had Mihawk, 9-drop Mihawk. And Mihawk was really good. It hit 7 costs or less, bottom decking them. But boss monsters at that point were 8 or more. So you play Mihawk. Mihawk already was a 9k, so weaker than a lot of other boss monsters like Edward Newgate, Purple, 10-drop Kaido. It made sense that, like, it had a really neat ability. That's why it had less power. But now Blue is relying on controlling the battlefield with 9-drop Mihawk, with 10-drop Blue Kaido, and Red Rock. It's crazy that even with this card in the meta, Blue is still not topping events. Because, yes, Red Rock can get rid of a card, but they'll immediately just play something else, like to replace it. It's a really good card, don't get me wrong. If some other problems are addressed, like, 10-drop Linlin being restricted, and there's less, like, these huge big bodies on board, I could see Gum Gun Red Rock being limited to 1. I think that limiting it to 1 is really rough. But also having it at 4, I can understand people's frustrations with it, especially playing the Miss All Sunday blocker that lets you recycle this card back into your hand. That's a ridiculous combo. I can also see Miss All Sunday being limited to 1 as well, which I probably should have put her picture in here as well. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Red Rock. I think it's an amazing card, but I don't think it needs to hit right away. But if things change in the meta with certain other cards, I can see this being a possible target to a limit 1 as well. And the last slide I have here for you is something I've talked with my roommate and a couple other players at our locals, that maybe boss monsters need the new tagline or skill of unique. It's something that we have in the Dragon Ball Super card game, where you can only have one copy of this card on the field at a time. You can't just repeatedly spam, spam, spam. So I think this would work great in One Piece, because we have, like, players often rely on just repeatedly spamming the same boss monster over and over again in order to win games. Having one on board's hard enough, but having two or three, it's just, there's no way you're going to win. Charlotte Linlin is the obvious target for this, because being able to spam multiples of them on turn after turn is just ridiculous. If we added the keyword skill unique, you could have up to 4 copies of these cards in your deck, but you can only have one on board at a time. So it makes you want to build your deck a little differently, where now you just can't put 4 in there and just back-to-back spam these on board. If you have one on board and you have, like, say 2 or 3 other copies of the card in your hand, that card is essentially worthless. It has no combo power. So you have to either wait for your current card to be destroyed, or you have to build a board of 5 cards and then get rid of the previous one in order to play the new one, as you know, the typical game mechanic is. So this would make people, in my opinion, change the way they build their decks. They wouldn't have 4 copies of these cards, and maybe they'll have like 2 or 3 copies, and then that's it. But I think these are all, like, I think it's hard to determine what is considered a boss monster. I just use these 4 as an example. We have 10-drop Linlin, 10-drop Kuzan, 10-drop Kaido, all having, like, you know, the 10k cost and then up to 10k or 12k power. Newgate is the exception, being a 9-drop, which always was a problem, because you have 9 for Newgate, then 1 for a Radical Beam or Guard Point, which is ridiculous. I think any card that has a power of 10k or more should have the unique keyword skill. So 9-drop Mihawk, I don't think wouldn't have the keyword skill. 8-drop Kid wouldn't have the unique skill, because it's not as hard to get rid of anymore. But I think that is something we really should look at and maybe ask Bandai to do. I think it's a great keyword skill in Dragon Ball Super. It stops people from spamming these overpowered cards on the board. This would actually change up the way people build their decks and the way that people play the game as a whole. Also, it would let people play multiple copies of Edward Newgate in their deck, and now they just can't have, you know, multiples of them on board. But that's just me personally. What do you guys think about the adding the unique skill in this game? Let me know in the comments down below. And once again, I want to say thank you so much for everyone that has subscribed to the channel lately. We are slowly but surely getting to 500 subs. I think we are at, oh god, like almost 460 at this point. I have to double check that, but I really want to say thank you so much for the support. I'm trying to get to 500 subs before the end of the year, and the ultimate goal to eventually get to over 1,000 subs. I would really like your support in that. If you like the content here, definitely think about supporting it. Let me know in the comments about everything we talked about in this video, and I will see you on the next video. Take care, guys.
The story goes, we find out by the treasure in the grand line, there's no doubt. The pirate whose eye is on it, he'll sing, I'll be king of the pirates, I'm gonna be king.
His name is Luffy.
That's Monkey D. Luffy.
King of the pirates.